Guys, what's going on? Welcome in. I'm looking at the schedule right in front of me here. We got some things to talk about, man. We got some things to talk about. So let's not waste time. Let's jump right into it. Let's just read off the schedule from start to finish. Week 1, Jets at Titans. Week 2, Packers at Jets. Week 3, Jets at Lions. Week 4, Jets at Bears. Week 5, Cleveland Browns at Jets. Week 6, Jets at New England. Week 7, Miami at Jets. Okay, Raiders at Jets. Week 9, Jets at Chiefs. Week 10, Bills at Jets. Week 11, Jets at Chargers. Week 12, Jets at Dolphins. Week 13, bye. Week 14, Denver Broncos at Jets. Week 15, Jets at Cardinals. Okay, week 16, Patriots at Jets. Week 17, Vikings at Jets. Week 18. Again, I feel like the Jets always play this freaking team in the last game or two of the season. Jets at Bills. Wow. Okay, so we have positives here. Believe it or not, we actually got some positives, but we also have some negatives. Quick side note, we're going to be doing the record prediction in a following video. I always find it a little weird to just look at the schedule straight up and just say win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. I need to dive into the other team schedules as well. Are they, is a team coming off of extra rest, or are they maybe put in a bind, end of a road trip or something like that? So I don't think it's fair for me right now, 1 minute after the schedule released, to dive into the full win loss. I need to take a look at some of these other team schedules as well. So let's start with the negatives here first. I got to be honest, man. Week 11, the Jets are going to the Chargers, and then they're following that up with going to Miami. The week prior, they're playing the Bills, and then the week before that, it's at Arrowhead. So week 9 through 12 is just... To me, it just feels like a brutal travel stretch. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but you get the cross-country trip to the Chargers, and then you're going, down south to Miami. Like, that feels like a lot in back-to-back road games. Now, I do like how we are playing Miami, towards the colder, the back end of the season here in Week 12. I definitely feel like that is a winnable game. But still, just from an overall travel and fatigue standpoint, going to the Chiefs, then you're coming back home, divisional opponent. Those games are always tough. And it's, of course, the Buffalo Bills. And then, man, you're going out to LA and then back down to Miami. So I hope the Dolphins aren't looking at that game saying, hey, we can catch the Jets in a pretty weird travel situation. Now, another strange kind of negative here for me is weeks 2 through 4, right? Green Bay at Jets, then Jets at Lions, and then Jets at Bears. I don't think it's the end of the world, and I actually have some positives that I do want to talk about, in this little stretch of games here. But I mean, man, those are 3 really tough opponents, and for weeks 4 and 5, it's back-to-back road games. I expect Detroit to be making the playoffs, and then Chicago's coming off such a fantastic season. So 3 NFC North games, again, just back-to-back-to-back, feels a little weird in the first month of the season, like just, shoved or slammed at the start here. Feels a little odd. Again, it's not the end of the world. And then really my last big negative here is that Week 18 game against the Bills. I mean, it feels like it's just automatic. For the next 5 years, it's just going to be Jets at Bills in the last week of the season. I don't understand it. Of course, they're in our division. We know we have to play them 2 times a year, but why is it every single time we go to Buffalo, it's like the last week of the season? Last year was just a humiliation, right? Just awful last season. Brady Cook, the Jets were tanking, but still. And then, even that Aaron Rodgers season, I went to that game. It was 40-0 at one point, right? Rodgers throwing that horrible interception over the middle of the field and then trying to make like a late hit out of bounds. Just completely pathetic. I don't like playing this. I mean, I guess you can spin it in a positive, right? If the Jets are like vying for a wild card position and the Bills maybe rest their starters or something like that. But I mean, it just feels a little weird that it's almost every single season it's Jets at Bills to end the season off. It just feels predetermined and just strange by the NFL or the schedule makers here. So let's focus on some positives here. There's actually quite a few, and I'm probably going to do a whole separate video on this probably tomorrow, because I know if I sleep on it and I'm just fixating on the schedule for the rest of tonight, I'll have more positives that come to me. But week 3, not going to lie, I have the Lions winning this one. Just looking at it right now, early on in the season at Ford Field, but Glenn and co do know, this is not just Aaron Glenn and that's it as far as members of the Lions staff. No, we can talk about Brian Duker. We can talk about Steve Hyden. We can talk about Seth Ryan, along with Aaron Glenn here. So, there is a knowledge in this Jets coaching staff about how the Detroit Lions like to do things. Will that be, are the Jets able to push, is that enough to push the Jets over the top of the Lions? I don't know at this point, but, I do think that there is a cool little behind the scenes, maybe knowledge, inside information, if you will, from the Jets coaching staff. And then week 4, Chicago's an interesting team because Chicago popped off this past season. It was an awesome year for them. They had that incredible playoff performance. And it's kind of like that's, you hear the term all the time, like, what have you done for me lately? Like, when you think about the Bears, you're thinking about Caleb Williams on that 4th down, making that crazy play, all those wins this past season. But something that I find really interesting is the amount of one-score wins that the Bears had matched with them being the number 1 team in the league as far as turnover differential. That's a very difficult thing to replicate. So I'm not saying that the Bears are going to fall off. I'm not saying that they're going to win 5 games or that they're this bad team now. No, because you can argue that Ben Johnson in year 2 and Caleb Williams can take another step, sure. But if you start analyzing last season's wins for Chicago, there were a lot of close games, a lot of games that came down to the wire. And of course, credit Chicago, they got the job done, they handled business. But again, looking at that turnover differential, looking at that margin, how much Chicago, literally the number 1 team in the NFL, that plays a part. How is it likely that Chicago can duplicate that this upcoming season, right? Because one would ask the question, if Chicago, say their turnover margin differential was around 10, 15, do they have that many wins? The answer is no. So again, is Chicago the better team at this point? I would say yes, but I think a lot of the wins last season were sneakily won because of all of the turnovers that defense created for that team. Now, another big positive here is if you look at the bottom 6 teams in football last year, and obviously the Jets were in that mix, so we removed the Jets and we're looking at the remaining 5. Out of the 5 worst teams in football, again, excluding the Jets, we played 4 of them. Arizona, Vegas, Tennessee, Cleveland. Then you look at the Dolphins. I think a lot of people are looking at that Dolphins team as a fresh start. It's a rebuild, new coach, new GM, bunch of young players. They're going to be starting a bunch of rookies, new quarterback here in Malik Willis. I don't necessarily know how good the Miami Dolphins are going to be this upcoming season. I could see them finishing with the 1st overall pick, them or Arizona. And again, we played the Dolphins 2 times. So if you're trying to look for positives here, if the Jets can just handle business, because look, if you think about the Jets from last year and then you're just saying like, okay, this Jets team against, the Titans with all their upgrades and Cam Ward going into year 2, or, last season's Jets team going up against, take your pick. Oh, Fernando Mendoza and Clint Kubiak week 8 against the Raiders. It doesn't sound good. It doesn't make you feel that good. But then if you start thinking about the acquisitions, Bailey, Pons, Sadiq, right? Minka, DeMario, all these new, the fresh coaching staff, right? If you, in your mind, imagine the Jets, think of the Jets as actually taking a step forward, these games don't necessarily look as bad. That's just my personal opinion here. So if the Jets can handle business against the teams that I feel like on paper they're better than, I mean, as far as our overall win total is concerned, I think we're going to be in at least a solid position. My goal for this upcoming season is 7 wins. And again, 4 out of the bottom 6 teams in the league. And we also have the Dolphins 2 times. 6 potential wins looking us right in the face. Now, the last positive that I have here, and again, tomorrow I'm going to come back with probably like 2 or 3 more because I'm going to be looking at the schedule all night here. But no primetime games. I personally look at that as a positive. I know, like, the fan in me is just like, oh, I would have loved to see whatever, Patriots Jets on Monday Night Football with a lot of hype building up to it, or Sunday Night Football, the theme and everything. Like, I get it, but having no primetime games, I think it's a win here. If you're talking about getting in rhythm, having a game on Sunday every single week, I think is really important, right? Not to mention that the Jets are not good on primetime football, and then they're also somehow not good with extended breaks. So, like, coming out of the bye, or they play a Thursday game, and so they have like a mini bye. They're never good on that. If you give the Jets extra time to rest, for some reason, whether it was AG or Robert Saleh, this team just doesn't look alive. They just look rusty and slow. So with our games being played on Sundays, I guess things can be flexed and moved around and stuff. But looking at the schedule right now, I like how we can get in a rhythm here. And again, I got to take a look at some of these other teams' schedules to see, okay, are they coming off maybe a Monday night game? Are they coming off a weird situation where it's like a long extended road trip or something like that? So all that stuff's really, really important. But I like how the Jets can get in a rhythm, and I also think for injury purposes, not having any Thursday night games is freaking huge. Not having any Thursday night games is a massive win in my personal book. So anyway, let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. I'm going to have probably more positives that come out tomorrow, and then I'll do my record prediction on Sunday after I can really get a thorough look at all of these other schedules. Let me know your thoughts down below. Thanks so much. It's not as bad as it looks. I mean, you're seeing Green Bay, Detroit, Chicago, all Patriots early, and who knows? Maybe New England takes a small step back. I don't really think I think it's a tough schedule for sure. There's some things that I don't like about it, but I also don't think that the Jets got like completely screwed. Maybe outside of that week 9 to 12 scheduling, I don't like. But again, thanks so much for watching. I appreciate it, and as always, go Jets.